Hello everyone, welcome back to YouNancial. Today's topic will be about the economy. My name is Kate, I am the Director of the Product Development team here at YouNancial, and I will be your instructor for today. Today's learning objective is that we want students to learn the basics of the U.S. economy by teaching them the different factors that make up the economy. And with that, I'll go right into the basic definitions of economy. The economy involves the producing and exchanging of goods or services of value done by each country and state. The well-being of the economy is determined by the activities involving the flow of goods and services. This involves individuals, corporations, and governments as well. The gross domestic product, or GDP, is the sum or total value of every good and service a country produces within a year. A country's economic well-being is measured within this factor. GDP is also measured per capita and per person. So right now I'll be going over the statistics. The US GDP is the highest of any country with $20.54 trillion US dollars. And the US GDP per capita is $62,794. Economic growth occurs when a country produces goods or services that are in high demand in other countries, leading to more consumers spending on their goods. So basically, when a country is producing a lot of goods and services, and a lot of consumers are spending money on those goods and services, the increased money circulation is allowing the economy to grow. So I will follow that definition with an example on the next slide. One example of economic growth is when Chinese steel has gained popularity across the world, thus allowing their economy to rise in part over time. Since there is high demand internationally for steel, it increases the amount of money consumers are spending on Chinese steel, allowing China's economy to grow. Now I'll be talking about the difference between inflation and deflation. Inflation is the rate in which the general price of goods rises over time. Thus, as inflation rises over time, the buying power of a consumer drops. So what exactly does it mean when the consumer's buying power drops? I'll demonstrate that with a few examples on the following slide. In 1969, the average gallon of gasoline cost 35 cents, but 50 years later in 2019, the average cost for a gallon is $2.60. In the 1980s, a burger at McDonald's cost 25 cents. It now costs $5. So using the McDonald's example, for instance, if I had $1 back in the 1980s, I could buy 4 burgers at McDonald's, whereas $1 right now in 2019 would not be enough money to buy a burger since it now costs $5. As you can see, I can buy 4 burgers back then, and now I can't at all with $1. This is what it means when a consumer buying power drops during inflation. As the price rises, consumer buying power drops because they cannot buy the same amount of things anymore. Deflation is when the price of goods and services drops due to a cut in the money supply of consumers. Less inflation seems good. However, deflation shows less demand, which leads to less consumer spending and less overall revenue. What exactly does deflation showing less demand mean? I'll demonstrate that with an example on the following slide. During the Great Recession from 2007 through 2009, we saw a drop in the price of goods, such as oil, and the inflation rate fell below 0%. Even though the price of oil fell, and again, cheaper things may look good, however, there was a recession during this time period. It demonstrated how there was less consumer spending, since most people were determined to save their money. The lack of money circulating showed reduced demand and produced less revenue for these firms. Moving on, I will be talking about economic cycles. Economic cycles occur when the country's economy rises and falls over time. During the expansion cycle, the economy is growing. During the contraction cycle, the economy is falling. I'll be going over expansion and contraction in more detail on the next slides. Expansion occurs when employment is low and goods and services are in demand and interest rates are low or falling. This usually lasts 6 years. The production of goods increases, as does income. Unemployment is low since employment rises during expansion. When people have jobs, they earn money and have the stability to spend their money. When interest rates are low, it creates more incentive for people or corporations to borrow money, which contributes to increased money circulation and expansion. Both the unemployment rate being low and interest rates being low helps money flow around the economy and helps it expand. Contraction occurs when total economic output has dropped heavily and unemployment has risen. A recession occurs. This usually lasts 6 months to a year. The production of goods decrease, as does income. When unemployment has risen, people are more likely to save their money during hard times. The lack of money circulating across the economy is what creates a recession. I can personally relate to this. Back during 2008 through 2009, I was in elementary school and my dad lost his job. It hit my family a lot during this time. I remember we were very careful with our money. We didn't spend a lot on luxury goods and only spent on necessities. My family is just one of the many examples of people mostly saving their money during the recession. Since again people weren't spending their money, this lack of circulation of money caused the recession to drive even further. Consumer Price Index, or CPI, is the average change of a price of a basket of goods and services over time. This measurement is used to calculate inflation over time to demonstrate how consumer buying power has changed. What exactly does it mean by basket of goods and services? This is just a saying for the average things an average person would buy. Examples include food, transportation, and clothes. All of these things would be included in the basket since they are the typical things that a typical person would spend money on. The CPI takes into consideration the changes of prices to these goods to determine the changes in the cost of living and how consumer buying power is affected. Moving on, I'll talk about supply and demand. The concept of supply and demand helps determine the price in the free market. If demand is high but supply is low for a good or service, demand and price will rise. If supply is high for a good or service but demand is low, the price will drop. In the next slide, I will be going over an example. This example explains when there's low supply and high demand. In the Silicon Valley, there is a high demand from these well-paid tech companies, but a few homes for sale, causing home prices to more than double in certain cities of the region. Due to low supply of houses and lots of people looking for homes in the Bay Area, the housing prices have risen to account for the high competition of housing. Houses will go to those who can afford the high prices. That's how they allocate homes when there's low supply and high amount of people that want to buy these homes. I can relate to this as well. Back in 2017, I just graduated high school and started college. During this time, my family was interested in buying a home in the Bay Area, but the prices were way too high, and they could not afford one. We ended up having to move out of the Bay Area in order to fulfill my family's dream of owning a home. This example covers when there is high supply and low demand. During the Great Recession, there were many homes across the U.S. being foreclosed and a less of a demand for home purchases. Thus, home prices dropped heavily, as fewer people could afford to purchase them. During the recession, many people lost their jobs, leading to foreclosures of homes. There were many homes available due to this, but demand has dropped since a lot of people cannot afford these houses. Unemployment rate measures the amount of people in the workforce who do not have a job at the moment and have been looking. This will rise and fall according to economic cycles. The only exception to the unemployment rate are those who do not have a job and are not actively looking. These kinds of people are not included in the unemployment rate. And with that, I'll explain unemployment with an example. Nikhil recently lost his job at Verizon and is currently looking for another job. Because of this, he is counted in the unemployment rate because he is looking for a job. Karen, on the other hand, quit her job at a frozen yogurt shop months ago. She is not counted in the unemployment rate because she is not looking for a job. And with that, that is all I have for you all. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video helped you understand the economy more. Here are some of YouNancial's socials. Feel free to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in a future video.